Well, that one day, there wasn't one.
It's actually, is it just a little bit after 6? This is a work session for Payson City Council. The date is, April 30th.
Tax day.
I'll go ahead and open the meeting with prayer, and can I get a volunteer for the pledge? Well, we can look that way if we want. It doesn't matter.
Imagine one in your head.
We'll project one up.
I'll go ahead and open, then we can do what we want to. Father in heaven, as we come before as a group of city council and staff, we're so thankful for the ability that we have of meeting and discussing the city business that could potentially help us with our infrastructure and other challenges in the city. Please help us to listen attentively and make the right decisions for the betterment of our fine city. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Since we don't have a flag, we'll discuss.
There it is.
Let's see. Oh, there we got one.
Well, it's even waving in the wind.
Ann, would you mind leading us?
Sure. Please.
That's how they did it in Provo, actually.
Okay, please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ann.
You bet.
Okay. Let's see what pretty short agenda. Be a work session discussing regarding the potential WIFIA funding projects. Also, number 2, regarding a new fire station. Number 3, discussion regarding fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. Okay.
Thanks, Mayor, Council, for being here. I know it was short notice. Felt like there's a 5th Wednesday, and a few years ago, every 5th Wednesday, we try to have some sort of work session, but we kind of got away from that. But there's just some things we wanted some direction on. There's no decisions that you will make tonight. It's more of a discussion, but we would like some direction, and if we're going in the right direction. So the first one's the WIFIA funding. We'll just let Travis lead this discussion.
So Brian, I'll apologize. I gave them the wrong email address for you. I thought yours looked like ours was doing it off memory. Not the wrong one. So you actually missed this meeting, but
Actually, I did. I was like,
okay. Well, anyway, I'll apologize because I screwed up. But so we're not gonna go through every one of these, but this is kind of the purpose of why we had this last meeting with Consor, go through which projects and whatnot. So let's do it. Yes, so these are some projects that are typed, these are what makes a project eligible through WIFIA. They have to be water related, so they can be culinary, pressurized irrigation, sewer, storm drain, but they have to be something with water. So you have to at least do a $20 million worth of either one project or multiple projects, but yet it has to be at least that. You can do 5 million if you're in a smaller community, which is less than 25,000. So we're barely there, but they go off the 2020 census, so we're still good until they do another census. But
So we could do a 5 million one?
we could, but if you get above the 25,000 people, then it's basically WIFI only will fund 49% of the project and we have to fund the rest. Where we're still smaller, they'll fund 80%. I mean, it's still, you're still paying it back. It's not like it's free. It's not a grant, but it's just different on how much you can borrow from them.
Taking a repossess
Good. So WIFIA, that's a federal program, so they do require, like if the project's big enough, it requires an NEPA study, just like they're doing on the interchange. If it's not, you can do an environmental assessment. Well, most of our projects are in an existing road, we shouldn't have to do anything, but there are a couple of them that will show you that will probably require at least a little bit of an environmental analysis, which
Mine is on.
they're looking at, like, do you have any archaeological stuff, do you have any endangered species, that kind of stuff, so. What was that smart comment that I just?
My pond.
No, we didn't put your pond in. So we might be able to get out of the Build America, Buy America requirement. Because we have, some of the projects we've listed, we actually had started a process with them and had a plan for it before that May 14th, 2022 deadline. So it's not a guarantee, but we might be able to get out of that, which just means some of the stuff, you know, like at the sewer plant, obviously, you don't even make in America, so that becomes cumbersome if you have to buy it here and then they're making it here, so.
I thought in that meeting we had, she said that they took that out of all of it.
Only if you're prior to that date,
Oh, okay.
so,
I thought it was going forward even.
no.
Is it gonna cost us more for the money than it would just buy foreign made?
Well, when we get to another slide, I might go that answer.
There's terrorists, who knows?
Well, I'm currently working with a WIPIA project in American Samoa, and that's the problem that we run into. It's just so cost prohibitive because everything has to be American made.
Yeah,
By the time you buy it here and ship it there, we could have got it out of China for way less.
Yeah.
so one of the things that in this process we're doing with Consor is you have to go through what priority is it to us? What's the status of it? Meaning, like, is it a concept level plan? Is it something we have that's ready to go to construction, or where, you know, where is it in our process? And then what other environmental impacts and what community benefit does it give? So here, based on our last meeting, is where I'm at with projects. And this is where we really need your input, is how comfortable are you and how many of these do you want to roughly go after? So everything in the top orange is what would go into that Nebo belt route with the new interchange. The blue right underneath that is for a new water tank and lines to help service all that growth that's gonna come. Phase 3 of Main Street, which we haven't funded yet, is on there,
What is phase 3? That one city block we're missing?
500 to 700
Two
ton.
block. Oh, 2 block.
And I'm working with, Dave Stewart on maybe $3 million. It's not for sure, but he's feeling really good about it.
So, but we had talked about this, these are prioritized as to the order in which you feel they're the most important, correct?
Not necessarily, this is just a list of them for right now, we will need to do that, we'll need to kind of prioritize them, but right now, this is just a list of projects.
Cause I still kind of, we had talked a little bit about some of this, that top orange portion, we might be able to take back out in impact fees from all the developments going out that way. So that would be quick to pay that back, and we kind of looked at other stuff, you know, is there anything? Well, we don't have to spend it all, if we're approved for it.
Well, we
don't spend
can
what
use
need.
impact fees to pay it back, the lending part of it will make sure, we have to be able to pay for that out of our user rates. Cause they won't use impact fees as a backing source, because what if all home building dies and you have no, you know, revenue coming in, they won't let you use it. Now, we can actually use the money to help pay it, but they won't count that as. a
Right.
source.
We have to you know, and that's,
So what's the difference in a PID and the WIFA?
A PID is funded by the development,
Okay,
so you guys have to approve it, but then they use whatever that money is that you guys approve, they
To
use
put
that,
into
and then it's a taxing entity.
Okay, I
on top of
understand
their
that.
normal.
so how does the WIFA mean?
This is
Work.
just a loan.
It's a city borrowing money.
Oh, okay.
And the real nice thing about this is, again, and it's been mentioned, we can have this whole thing, we can say we're gonna go after the, $192 million, but yeah, I know. But we don't, but we don't have to spend that. If we get to a point where we say, okay, we've done enough, we can turn that back in and we don't have to pay anything on that outstanding amount, right? Am I saying it right?
We don't have to do the
And
project.
it's through the federal.
It's federal government.
Yeah.
So you can get
A
approved,
third of
like,
it is
we
that
could,
sewer plant.
we could get approved for 192 million and only end up borrowing, say, 70 or 80 or whatever number, and then we're not obligated to pay any of the rest of this back.
You
So,
have to remember 80 million of it, though, we've already borrowed.
yeah, so
This
what's
is
the
just to
interest?
try to
I
find
mean, does
cheaper
it give us a long time
And
to
one of
pay
the
for
reasons
it?
we might leave the treatment plant in there is because of that 20% that we have to come up with, because we will have already obviously spent this money, or at least a lot of it. So that would count towards our 20% requirements. So that's why we threw that in there. We may not actually borrow $80 million to then reimburse ourselves.
So that would be our 20% of that 80 million.
So that's why that's in
Could
there.
very well be.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to play the
And
game.
Go ahead.
We talked about refinancing that, but this is actually a higher interest rate than what that is. So if it comes down over time, we might be able to, but right now, we really can't refinance that, which makes sense.
We still have a portion that we have to.
Yeah.
issue a bond.
Right, so yeah, part of that, I mean, it might need another 10 million, this would be a good way to get that, yeah.
So. We talked about this with council before and the direction we thought we had is go pursue it. We've met with the consultant and then come back and tell us where we're at. So we've had 2 meetings with Consort and we're kind of at the point now to at least some direction to count, say, yeah, keep going with this application fee.
I'm just trying to clarify it all. So we're really only looking to borrow 112 million because we've already borrowed the 80 million in order to pay the 20% down.
So like the golf course sprinkler system, that's to replace the entire sprinkler system at the golf course. If we also wanted to add the pond at Four Bay and some pipe to connect it, we'd have to figure out a cost, but say that could be another, that could be 6 to 7 million instead of the 3.5. I mean, we don't have a design, but and then you've got like culinary and PI old, replacing old lines in the system, same with sewer. We have a lot of like storm drain sumps that are in our wellhead protection zones that aren't supposed to be there that we really should move at some point. That's why I threw that in there. And then 800 West is a big project we've looked at for a lot of years, but it's expensive, so we've never done it. And it's definitely fallen apart and the infrastructure. So obviously we could add 10 more projects to this list, but I knew we were already up at a really high level. So I didn't really want to get up to the 300, 400 million. And then, that's kind of a waste of time too. But out of these projects, is there anything you would rather see or take something out or, that's kind of what we need to know is what level are you comfortable looking?
So how long do you get to pay for it?
45 years, I think it
Almost
was.
40 years, depending on.
40 years.
So what would the payment be? If you did $192 million, what would that payment be
We have
for
not
5
got to
years?
that point yet. That is something we would have to do with this process. We would have to do a rate study for each one of those utilities.
I just want to know what it would be per year. The minimum that we would have to pay that off.
Can we reword some of them?
What's that?
I just,
I can tell you.
we'll have to figure that out, but like the golf course sprinkler system, I'm not saying that, Tracy isn't entitled to that, and if that's what we need to do, that's great and fine, but can we call that, a secondary water system for Gladstone and beyond or something, so that like all of those houses that are up Goose Nest Drive, we could say, let's put the pond in, jump that to 10 million and look at the pond as part of that. Some of that piping down through there, new sprinkler system through it, so it's all incorporated. The reason I'm saying that is because then all of a sudden we can use impact fees to pay that back.
I
We
can't use impact fees on an existing deficiency. So you can't replace the sprinkler system with impact fees.
But that's why you have to word it differently.
Well, that's not legal. I'm not gonna go to
But you
jail.
could-
Brett is thinking outside the box.
I know, that's why I'm shutting him down right now.
There's no, yeah. You could end up on the inside of that box with no money.
A little higher than what we're paying on the.
The one
With 6 million.
Yeah, that's just for interest, but then you gotta put the principal in, so you got another 4.2.
Oh, I get
Well, that's-
6 on both.
That's for.
So not pay 6 million a year?
I did 5%.
Oh, I did 4.
Cause I think it's higher than,
What did they say, it was like 4.7?
yeah, 4.7, yeah.
That's not being in there.
But there's no discount, there's no big plan in there.
I already got it.
It's better when you can probably get in the bond market, but it's pretty close, but you got more flexibility because you can start later, you can
You
defer.
can add as you want.
Yeah, so it's just a lot more
Is there
flexible.
penalties for paying early or anything?
No.
The other thing that I like about
$10
this.
million a year.
The thing I like about this is you don't, if we get a bond for a project, like all his orange there, how many millions that?
Mini.
We can't do it on this sheet.
But if
Yeah, 30. No, thanks, quite.
anyway, usually when you bond for a whole project, like we did on the sewer plant, we had to, we bonded for 40 million for one of the bonds. You have to start paying on that immediately. This, you don't pay on any of these until you actually take the money to start the
To
project.
use it.
It's more like, wouldn't it be kind of like a revolving dock?
Yeah, we're saving.
Isn't that the term that you would use that?
Yeah, especially when where you can use it.
You know, you don't want the total amount, you just have to make it that we use.
Oh, right. So all we need to do is guarantee that if we have the rates, that
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
so like all of this is.
that's where the challenge lies, is if it tells us we have to raise our rates.
Yeah.
$3,000 a month for every house,
But I
yeah,
think you
that's
don't-
not gonna work.
You don't even have
We'd
to
all be
start
dead.
paying.
We'd all be
Right,
dead.
until you start.
They
paying.
would come.
They would come and they would blow it away.
Start all the projects.
I don't think we're that super.
Here's the weekend.
We spend the money.
We can show them if we make that, how we start saving money, if we start making versus waiting.
Yeah.
It's gonna save them money
Yeah.
in the long run.
Cause this isn't roads, this is just
Well, we
water.
got roads down there too.
They don't do under.
5 years of roads plus 8 others, we got.
No, there's no roads, you can't, we can,
Well, I know, but.
If you tear it up.
I'm like, say 8th West,
Right,
if we
right.
ripped everything out, we're redoing the whole road because there's nothing.
Right,
left. We did every utility in it, so we're gonna redo it.
You redo it, I thought you just tore it up and left giant potholes in front of people's houses.
See, that's-
yours.
That's the nice thing about this too, because it's a water thing, but in order for, if we have replacing the infrastructure underneath it, it will cover the road, putting it back together.
It's just hard because for 45 years, none of us will be here,
I
or at
know.
least will be too old and we
So,
are
but it's-
trapping our children, grandchildren, great
But it
grandchildren.
sets us, the city up for the future.
Now granted, most of what's in that orange. Now that, there's no time frame exactly, but that would almost all of that would be reimbursed to us through PRI when they develop. Like, not all of it, because some of it gets down to some other property owners. But when they went to develop,
Well, see, the water tanks and the upsides of the water line would also be.
Yep.
Yeah, those are.
All of these,
So we got
That's all
50 million there,
development.
so they only back.
That's what we're looking at. is we're just preparing ourselves for a growth spurt that allows us to be reimbursed. The only thing we're on the hook for is that orange, in my opinion. Everything else is if we grow fast enough to need it. That money would be there, we could move forward, and we may not ever touch it.
Well, some of it,
But that's my philosophy.
some of I look right now, like 800 West and the underground for utilities. I wanna start doing those now, I wanna catch up. And so we aren't, so we're spending, like I have an analogy, I was in New York and the subway. I had a thing there showing about the subway, that, and the trains, they could go like 250,000 miles before they had to, have a breakdown. Then they quit spending money on it. And then it came down to every 7,000 miles, it had a breakdown. So I look at that this way. And they end up spending a lot more money because they delayed doing stuff, and we've kind of done that with the road.
Yeah, we've already done that.
And so in the long run, it'll save our citizens. They might say, oh, you spent a lot of money. But in the long run, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, it's gonna save them money. So it's not like we're bad people in 10 to 20 years. We are projected out 10 to 20 years to save money and get things on track.
And if we do it piecemeal, it'll take so damn long to do it by the time, even if we don't get to the point where we finish it, we're gonna have to go back and repair what we
Mhm.
put in, which will cost more money too.
The other thing is, yeah, there's a grand total down there of $193 million. But if we look out into the future, maybe we're not committing to that entire amount from day one, right? we might do a few of those projects and then say, oh, well, we've actually opened up some area now that other people can contribute. The thing that really intrigues me about this, specifically that top orange part, we have one chance to get the utilities in that road, and the road is being built, right? And so we need to figure that out. And generally, we would say, development, you need to come in and provide all of this infrastructure. But that isn't feasible in this case because the development can't happen until that infrastructure goes in. So this is our opportunity to actually guide the development a little bit.
I think you're totally wrong, because I drove down Main Street in Santa Quinn, and they tore their brand new road up 3 weeks later.
They did,
Well,
didn't they?
yeah.
Yes, they did, and every time I've driven by that in the last month, I thought, this has gotta be done, we're not doing this is stupid.
The other thing is that gives us some control, just like what Robert was saying, is, you know, with all that yellow, gives us some control as they come in and we can, they no longer will the developer say, hey, we need this much density to make this pencil.
Mhm.
Because we've already invested in that, and it gives us more control.
And in light matter, like the bottom one, 800 West, we can't use impact fees for that stuff.
Right.
Because you're
That's
replacing it.
existing
Right.
infrastructure, we can't use.
You can't go back after the people that are already there.
So we have to come up with a way to actually finance that.
And
And
can I
this
make
would provide an opportunity to do that.
He's
a
thinking outside the
proposal on
box.
this as well? 800 West, I realized
Like
that
clear.
it really would be a really nice thoroughfare and would pull a lot of traffic off of 100 West if it was a little bit easier to access and a little bit more of a straight shot. Can we bump that by a few $1 million and buy those 3 houses right there and take them out? So that as you come off Utah Avenue, you hit a straight shot that cuts you right over and widen that road and make it a collector. And put sink that 20 million, make it 26 million and make it worth it. That all of a sudden now we have 2 parallel north-south roads.
The water line all the way through there.
You are?
Do that.
Yeah, if you were putting, if you guys were,
The water price.
if you were willing to go,
water project.
if you were willing to go through condemnation and buy those homes and then put the roads and the utilities in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You could put the road, you could put the water. I'm looking at this as the big picture. And I mean, drive down there and look. It really is just, if we just cut that one corner off, it would really
When it
change.
makes the
that.
turn onto 100 South, what he's saying is, you still have 100 South coming in, but you just go straight through until you hit
Just
Utah.
parallel the freeway.
Yeah, you hit 700 south and 700 west, and it would just come down a little bit to the west and go right straight down 800 west.
Yeah.
So you don't have that jog, you come up to 100 south and have to turn right and then go around that turn.
You'd make 800 West a collector road.
With the way the interchange is going, or the interstate like that, you went straight.
Hey, I have a question. So let's say we just get 200 million to do this. Is this in today's money? Because how long is it gonna take to do all these projects? Like,
That's a very fair point.
you know what I'm saying? So is it gonna be really 350? I don't know. I've never.
They make us put a contingency on.
What's the
on top of
contingency?
this.
Do you know?
If it's not designed, it's 20%. If it's designed and ready to go, it's 10.
Okay.
They make you put money in there to make sure you can build it.
Did they need some, at least, some of these projects, is it 7 years that they tell you have to have?
They
it
would
done
like
by?
them all done within 7. You can push it out a little bit.
That's
she
right.
said, but-
She said you can justify why you have to take a little bit longer, just the sheer amount would make that a pretty good conversation.
Brett, your idea is not gonna work.
Why not?
That'll come from your Roberts.
Let me show you.
Do what?
Your Roberts would be a straight line.
Not that straight of a line.
You want the little crooked, not perfectly straight. Oh, so you do it like you have to do a 45 and come around.
There's why your idea won't work.
Oh, that's a nice picture.
Cause it goes right there.
No, I think.
No,
you're-
you say-
I'm taking these houses out right here,
Yeah, right there.
right there. That is
Yeah,
where
but
we're
then
at.
you got 2 roads right next to each other and one of them doesn't come in at a 90.
Well, you come off here and you just knock these houses off the corner.
Make your cul-de-sac on the next
You
one.
know what? I'm the idea guy, not the engineer. Shut up and make it work.
All right.
What?
The only thing I put on this list, this is a wish one, more than, I like all these projects, and I think we need them, all of them we need. And they're crucial, and they're gonna save us money in the long term, every one of them. The only one I look at as kind of is a want instead of a need, is Fort Bay, that pond up in Fort Bay, lining that and making it bigger and have a nice place for recreation. And I put that in this list.
And that was all I was trying to say. Even if you just round it, you just go to around $200 million.
It's no biggie. Just put 200 million, you know?
But you know, to Tracy's point, and to Brian's point, this is in today's dollars. What are we saving down the road?
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's the other, yeah.
We go back to sewer plant.
One of the water.
Wish we would have did that at 25 million, huh?
But if the state wouldn't have come and said,
I know. Dumb state, we should make them pay for that.
yeah, we tried.
I think. Brandon is like, what have I got myself?
You hired me, why?
I took this job.
That's why they didn't let me interview, is because they didn't want to scare you away.
Well, that's a good idea.
I think that at least the orange is critical,
Yes.
because UDOT, we have to tell UDOT what we're gonna put in, they have to design it. And they make us put the money in to their coffers before they start construction.
Yeah, we have to put that money in their account or they won't include us.
So I think that I thought we were farther in than this. Cause that orange section needs to be done and needs to be done now. I
Well,
really don't want to tear up a brand new road.
Well, and it'll cost more. That's
absolutely.
the kicker too.
So.
We wanna do it right the first time.
Just each of you, like, looking at that list. As far as direction to move forward, is this? we move forward
are we on
with
the
this
right
list?
track?
Well, I think line 26 has to.
And we're
stay
not
because it
obligated,
covers our
even if we go
20%.
further, right? We're not obligated even if we go further, but we
Right,
need to
right.
we need to explore it further.
Right, so basically, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but next steps from here is our consultant is helping us draft a letter of intent. That would allow us to apply to the EPA for this money. Then the EPA makes a decision on whether or not they're going to give us the money. Everything that we've been told so far is that the indication is pretty high that we would qualify for this money. What we really need to do and be comfortable with at this point is saying, okay, if we're anticipating $200 million in projects, for this, that doesn't mean that we have to take that 200 million, but we have to commit to saying we will raise rates over time in order to cover that. A lot of those things up there would be covered with impact fees, but we can't count that in our financial revenue projections. So we have to be able to say, yes, we feel like this is important and we would be willing to do that.
Not that we have to, but we would be willing.
There's always an off ramp. There's always an off.
So I guess is what we need to as the political officers know if we're gonna get lynched, if we agree to it. This orange section, you're gonna get funded now. We're gonna go to them and say, UDOT's gonna just design this, we'll kick that money back. This is a now issue. What do we have to raise the rates for right now to cover that? Because we'll have to raise those because the impact fees aren't gonna come prior to us needing to account for that.
We might get all that back for the impact fees you have, or before the.
Because of the
Raise
people
rate
coming in to
because-
build it.
We've got
How long do we have to have before we pay it back?
7
plus.
It's 5 years after the project is complete.
You have to stop.
Oh, okay.
So we
have
that's
5
the other
years.
thing. If we bonded for that money, like Dave was
Right.
saying, we would have to start paying
Right now.
And take the whole
I'm
amount.
just saying, worst case scenario, if we go in, we say UDOT go for this, they put all this money into it, and in the next
Right.
10 to 20 years, because I've seen the way they're working. I mean, when do we project this to be done? 3 years? 5 years?
Just look how fast that one going to Mapleton is going in.
UDOT's gonna start construction on the interchange in 2027.
Yep, 2027. Well, they may even start piling the dirt up for the interchange and let it sit there in 2026 because it saves them 18 months.
Okay, yeah, the compaction
Yeah,
process. that
the
makes sense.
compact,
So
so,
what we're saying is we don't have to raise rates at all for a while.
No,
And we don't have to raise rates, we just have to say that we're willing
Willing
to
to
raise rates.
do that.
We don't
and
have
that's,
to raise it.
that's all I wanna know is what is the rates gonna have to
What would they have
raise?
to be?
And
If
that will be done as part of this process. We have to do a rate study to determine what that amount needs to go up, and then when are we comfortable doing that over a 10-year period or whatever that number is?
Yeah.
But would that be the people that live out there paying for that,
No,
or is it everybody?
we have to cover it as us, but we would take that and divide it over 40 years.
So this
And then
is an
determine.
option. We're gonna probably do a work session, obviously not next week, but the following council meeting. And if that works out, have a consultant come talking about why we should update impact fees every year. And he also used to be my job at Spanish Fork till he retired, but they also did a different, they did a different utility rate for new development for 10 years. I think he's gonna talk about that too. So they charged a higher rate for 10 years in new developments, and then after 10 years, that went back to the regular rate. It's just something to look at. We've never done that. I don't know if there was an offset in impact fees or how they exactly did that, but I think.
We might have to do that with all the growth.
and if you remember, the Utah housing, people, came to us and said, hey, you guys need to update this every year like Spanish Fork is doing. So it actually came from them,
Yeah, the home builders.
the homeowners
I
association.
think Salem's up to 45,000 now for impact fees, where hers to like 25, so.
The problem I see with doing that as a new development, 10-year impact fee, is I live in an old neighborhood. And there are houses coming up everywhere. If there's an empty spot of land, they're building a house in it right now. And so it's taxing the infrastructure that's in there. And the only way we can ever get money is if there's a new development in there, a new house. And so I don't know that giving those people a cheaper rate just because they're building in an old part of town is gonna benefit the citizens that are there. Such as myself, who every house I lose water pressure,
But it should impact you in a negative way, because, if we have the infrastructure in place, it should just, hardly even notice it as far as, pressure and different things like
Well,
that. We have the right
or
size pipes and everything
if
like
we
that.
had the right size, but the PI was built for the population that was here when it was done, and that's why we water every other day, is because the
Well,
pipes aren't big.
the reason we're doing that, because it was a decision to undersize it.
Well, I know, and that's what I'm saying, but these new houses, they're not part of that equation, and that's where you start to.
Who made a decision to undersize it?
That's what the debate was 40 years ago, 30 years ago. They knew they had to make it a bigger pipe, but they didn't want to pay the money to do it, and they said, okay,
Who was the council then?
I'm not even gonna try
I
to
was still
calculate.
really young, so I don't know.
That was, that was the decision that was made.
We had so many discussions at the fire station about making those pipe size bigger, and he didn't want to do it.
That's
Waste of
why,
money.
that's why we're having this discussion to plan for the future now.
We don't wanna do that
Not
to
make bad mistakes, yep.
Yeah, he was.
I don't. Well, there for 6 months.
But I mean, that's just a perfect example though of what probably for like $300,000 back then would cost us $50 million to fix them.
But regardless, we can be critical of that decision, and I have been in the past, but they were trying to do what was best for the city at the time financially as well. But it was in a lot of ways short-sighted, because they said, oh, okay, we know this is gonna be undersized. We can come back later, which is rotten reasoning, and do it right. And that never happens. And if it does, it costs you 10 times as much.
Honestly, I think the watering every other day is a great solution for an undersized system like that. It solves it. I'm just saying that I don't want to give somebody a discount because they're in the old part of town. If we can get away with the higher impact fees in a new part, why can't we do it in the old part where we need the money more, to be honest? That's my philosophy. That was all I was getting at there.
So in the interest of time, I know that.
Too late.
Are we okay to proceed?
He wants to keep.
Yeah.
Proceeding with
so.
it.
It doesn't cost
Is
us
that a
anything
thumbs
to
up from
proceed.
everybody?
Thumbs up, I just put in the.
It doesn't cost
the
anything,
bond.
but it does cost because we have to pay our consultants.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But it's well worth finding out what we have to do.
Spend it.
No. Well worth finding.
We need to consult.
And if you want my experience.
It's a want.
Okay, that sound good, council? Just go ahead and let's keep going with the process.
Yeah, so there are many other steps in this that will come back to.
Oh,
I had a question about weird thing. Do you have to say underwriting costs?
Run down.
You just take money and water it.
He was on there when we got there. You can do all of it, and it might have been 2 years.
There might be. And there isn't, though, you can sell.
So you only do underwriting for
Are we going to the next item?
Okay, the next item, ladies and gentlemen, would be a discussion on fire station. Scott, you ready?
Yeah, just a minute. Scott's not ready.
Oh, Scott's up
Not
there.
quite ready.
Oh, we already spent our money, sorry. Next one.
Hey, it's just 10 million under that 200, that's not much. It's less.
So they pay for it?
Yeah, with all the money we've been talking
Will they
about.
pay for that? It goes up with water, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just have Sean present for you.
Yeah.
Just tell me the size. Just the size. I need to know the size.
Yeah, Sean is very interested.
So I'm not a fan of this thing.
When you go on like that, I mean, pick, you know,
That's what we're talking about.
While we're doing this, Ryan and I both, as when we went down to the League of Cities and Towns, Ryan and I both went down to the most recent fire station that St. George has got, fire station number 10. And, you know, it was a really good project to look at.
It was beautiful fire station.
Yeah.
sorry, that was on the wrong one too.
It's like, that's.
So, yeah, sorry. So Scott went to get the thing, but we had a consultant come and talk to the council. And this was the concept plan that we paid for. And we can go through all that.
So you know, all those windows just are not
This is not
efficient.
the one downtown. This is the one that would need to be built.
They let cold in, they let hot in. And I don't care how good the windows are, it still lets the heat in and it lets the cold in.
Just out of curiosity, why didn't we just ask to borrow Salem's? Theirs is a nice little unit.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about Salem's. So this was the one that they presented to us on, and they've got estimated costs. Here's the layout. I know Sean's interested because of this substation that we need to put in. He wants more area than what we're giving him.
Hey, I go up with it or something.
But this is CERT construction. They were down at the league meetings too. But this is approximately $10 million. We talked a little bit with the council before about, you know, if we need to have this, we could put it out for a vote of the people as the general obligation bond, but if they vote it down and we still need it, it's kind of hard to go to the public and say, hey, we do vote for this. And they say, no, we don't want it. And then we say, well, we gotta have it anyway, we're gonna build it. Spanish Fork's done that on a few things.
And that doesn't play very well.
And so, but it seemed like the council was a little bit averse to raising property tax enough to pay the bond for $10 million for the whole thing. We came back and we had a little bit of discussion now at the week, but talked with Kathy with our fund balance and stuff, and I think we can dedicate $4 million from fund balance to go toward this. And so we ran some numbers on, and these are high level numbers because we don't know the tax rate yet from Utah County, but if we have $4 million out of the 10 and we raise property tax enough to cover the rest of the bond payment of the 6 million, say it's 10 million, it's about $40 a year that your property tax would go up. And that's for a house of about 440,000. So we're trying to get some numbers to say, yeah, we have some fund balance to pay for almost half. The other half, we'd have to raise property tax. just wanted to know, is city council more comfortable with that? With using some of our savings to pay for a portion of it? And going down and trying to get this designed and built.
I think that's a responsible way to go.
In the truth and taxation hearing in August, we would try to get the word out through, you know, the different organizations throughout town, and the fire would have to help.
Yeah.
Give some PR work saying, look, we really need this fire department or fire station. We've got some money in savings to pay a portion of it. We would need to raise property tax to pay for the rest of the 10 million to get to that point. So, that's kind of what we're presenting, trying to go down this road if the council wants us to do that. Now, just a little caveat, because I know, the mayor and Ryan Rowley down at the lake, they went toward the St. George one. I couldn't get it to pull up. Ryan Rowley sent me a text with a picture of a flyer that he got there. So they indicated, Mayor, you chime in, that it was $6 million. I think Scott's determined it was like 6.5 million, 6.4. It was 12,800 square feet. This one's almost 17,000 square feet, so it's about $3,000 square feet more. But I wanted to get apples to apples, and I don't know if I've got that yet, but so the St. George one was, it was, how many square feet was it, Scott? Gosh, dang it. Oh, it was 12,800, but with at 6.4 million, it's about $500 a square foot.
That's apples, that would be the same if you took that number and divided it.
This one is a little bit higher, it's like 592 square foot. And I talked to Salem City, Matt Marziel said their station over there was 13 million. It was a little bigger, it was 21,000 square feet. And it was $596.96 a square foot. This estimate on ours is 592. The one down in St. George, which I don't know if we have all the information, but it's closer to 500. And
Is there a savings if we just use their plans? We wouldn't have to have.
Well, this is
Planned out.
similar. It's a little bigger because you've got the
I'm
train.
just talking the cost of having the plans drawn.
But you gotta remember, that station was bid 2 years ago. So if they bid that station today, it wouldn't be even close.
You're right, okay.
So what, as I talked to Chief Stoker about it, the company the construction company that built Station 10, that built a couple other stations. He indicated they really undercut the bid because they wanted to keep the company workers in St. George and build the station, so they underbid it quite a bit. He said he had challenges with them and they're probably not gonna use them or the architect again, and they're gonna go with something different. But they do have a nice layout because they've used
I think
that
you
same
liked it,
layout
didn't
for
you?
several.
You did, it was a good layout. It's very similar to what we just saw with that rendition that you had done.
Yeah.
Very similar.
But if we went to a smaller size like that, if it covers everything, that's still gonna save us a couple of $1
Yeah.
million.
But the problem is, you need to remember is, on fire stations, it's easier to build it now than try and remodel or add on to it for growth in the future.
Because you can't shut them down.
Yeah, and the way they're designed, it's easier to do up front and be done with it. Because our overall plan, when you look at the entire city, is like a 6-station thing. That's long down the road. But you've got to have enough because we're doing medical, fire, wildland, hazmat, rescue stuff.
Are we okay with the 4
Yeah,
apparatus base?
Yeah.
That's plenty.
So then we have to buy 4 new engines?
no, just one ladder.
Okay.
And we,
That's like $1.5 million, right?
I'm cutting the other 3 out.
2.2.
I knew it was in the millions.
But for, go
Okay,
ahead.
so here now my question is, I know I was all gung ho and says, let's just do this, what difference does it make where it really is? The location, I'm a little bit irritated with, Spring Lake, writing this off, and now this is gonna put it right on the edge of our
Right,
town.
but you gotta remember, we cover a lot of county area to the south and to the west.
They
Spring
can
Lake,
wait for us.
yes, they do now. But Spring Lake will be, is and will be one of our customers.
And they pay outright for everything.
Yes.
So if we dispatch a fire truck, they pay for it.
So what we told them when they did the feasibility study for Spring Lake is we'll charge,
That's
just
because
like,
they're gonna be their own
Exactly.
city, huh?
there'll be a base rate, and then anything after an hour, we'll charge additional fees. And they don't have a
To the
choice on
city,
medical
not
right now,
the-
they have to use us.
And the other thing too is Patterson's is building up towards on that mountain,
Yes.
and that's right directly east, and there'll be a need for quick response
So
up
it's-
there, across
Alright, I won't.
the canal.
When you look at it, this station will cover all the new development, MTech, everything to the south, Taylor Ranch and all that area. It'll be a lot faster response here. So we gotta remember it's
And
response.
we could be, by the time this one's done, we may be needing to put another one on the east side of town anyway.
What about Santa Clara? Because we're close to part of Santa Clara, are we gonna, how's that work?
Join the departments?
Yes. They don't, the problem is they don't want to. It wasn't me.
Who was it? Your captain? Their captain?
All depend on who's gonna be in charge.
He didn't want me to be in charge of him. Right now, we cover like all of McMullins and everything out in Peakwood Quarry and then everything north. With this station, we would be backing them up and would probably be a primary response on some of their community. Would be a lot closer than their stations. Their goal is to build a station south, not north.
And going to your, yeah, and you don't want to overbuild too much, but you want to overbuild enough that that it will last for, say, 30 years.
Oh, yeah,
or
30, I
better.
mean, our station that we have now is 58.
Yeah, and,
When are we gonna take?
Well, then I think we can get another 20 out of it.
Exactly.
but when Spanish first built their police station, there was a part that was, they mothballed for a while.
Yeah.
And then as they grew, then they could bring officers into that area. So it is a cost saving.
Yeah, it is, and with this, we would still use the downtown station, and we would probably sell off the Station 92, which is the medical station. So that would be a little bit of savings or revenue there.
That one's already sold, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just waiting to buy it.
He's chomping at the bit.
Yes.
That Ron?
Have that stupid substation that's in the middle of the block is a problem. It's notorious.
We need to grow that.
So I just have a quick question. You said we could put this out for a general bond, on the ballot and ask them. What would be the advantage of that over saying, all right, we're just gonna do it?
I don't see an advantage because if
They're gonna say no.
if they turn it down, which a lot of them do, and we're okay.
No, I
to
think
build
they
it,
will.
I think it'd be a good thing to put out,
I
but
know, but that's
if what
still
I'm hearing, that we're the oldest
22
department in the county and
to
it's small,
900 or
we
something
need,
like that.
if we need it, I think it doesn't make sense to put it out to let the people vote on it.
Right.
Because if they vote it down,
We have to do
we
it anyway.
probably say, we
Everybody's
gotta do it
poor
anyway,
right now.
and then they're mad.
Well, I just didn't
Everybody's
know
poor right
if by
now.
putting it on the ballot would saved us money because it allowed us to bond for it differently. If it doesn't, all we're trying to do is get their approval. I don't know that we,
A general obligation bond sometimes has a better interest rate than a revenue bond. But in this case, I think what we would do in this case is we would have first our fund balance, 4 million, and we need to bond for like 6 million. It'd probably be a sales tax bond. Just that you have to back it with something, and a sales tax gives you a pretty good rate.
The downside too is that the council has to be willing to have truth in taxation every year to assess that extra $40.
And that's not really a downside because it benefits us anyhow.
and we've done it for 8 years
Yeah.
now. I don't think, we did this one.
There's no downside.
No.
During COVID.
Yeah.
So would it
COVID year, we
increase
didn't,
the
but
property
otherwise we did
taxes
every
$40 every year? So $40 one year and $40, so essentially
Well,
$80.
No, we wouldn't go the next year and say we're gonna raise it another 40, because once we do it next year, it's just, we get that much more every year.
So we wouldn't have
We're trying
to.
to hold stick, well, yeah.
would hold it steady.
Yeah, you just have to research.
compound it.
No, yeah,
Right.
it's a compound, but it would go up.
So is there a way to do this without increasing property taxes? Because people are paying a lot already.
The problem is the property taxes is a little tricky. When we say that you've got to recertify it, is they'll give us, say, $5 million and we build 500 homes. They lower everybody's property tax to keep it at 5 million. So we just keep the property tax the same. So we jump up to catch those 50 homes and they pay the same rate the rest of us.
And the county's gonna change that because they need more money and that's one of the reasons they tried to jump their property tax. I think was 40 or 50% and people just had a shit. Because every year they drop it and under the guys that they got more houses, so they get more money, they don't.
and they don't have enough money to fund what they got to fund. So at some point in time, they're gonna have to change that.
So you're saying it doesn't really increase
Do
at
I
all?
need to smack you?
Well, it does, because you stay at the same rate. By comparison, you stay at the same rate. It doesn't increase it any, but it looks like it does because they dropped theirs. That makes sense?
So when they get that property tax bill, or it goes to their mortgage company, gets paid out of escrow.
And it's only 12% of the property tax.
And it doesn't actually,
Right.
it doesn't change, it shouldn't change their property taxes, the amount they pay, right?
Yeah, people need to go to their.
It could, but it,
Their things with it for
Property tax, because it's the same revenue spread over a wider base.
right,
And we're gonna spend further right. It shouldn't.
Well, they
it
do
shouldn't
it.
change.
Somebody they can find.
Right.
And does that make sense?
Cause we've raised it the last 2 years, but my property tax has gone down because we're spreading out the new ones that's why they're trying to lower it, because the new ones are coming in and they're trying to lower it, so a lot of people want to get the property taxes raised.
The county wants to lower it every year, and we just try to keep it where it's at, that's what we.
But to answer Ann's question, I mean, can we fund it any other way? I mean, we would either have to, encumber some new sales tax, which is kind of flat right now. We can't do a revenue bond because it's a general fund department. The ambulance fund's an enterprise fund, but I don't think we have sufficient revenue to do a revenue bond just based on the ambulance, revenues.
Sean will pay for
We could put it in the power department. Pay for it.
Here's the point. How bad you on that substation?
It's up to you guys.
Your lights are gonna turn on regardless of what we do, aren't they?
He said Spring City.
I know.
I just don't wanna impact people's
When we
property
talked
taxes.
about this, before, I think the estimate that we came up with is if we fund the whole $10 million bond, we'd have to raise property taxes. I think it was $87 a year. It was close to $90 a year to do the whole 10 million. To come up with the 4 million, it dropped it down to about 40, but it would be a tax increase. I mean, that's.
That one they would see on there.
And that is dependent on the CTR. the
Right.
rate we
Yeah.
and everything else.
We don't know what the county's gonna lower it to this year.
And by the time we actually got the money headed this direction, we could have lots of houses coming in too.
So
Same issue, it's all tough to call.
I have another question, since we're growing and we're always having to look for employees because of growth, if we take the $4 million, how does that affect us next year for our budget if we need more employees?
Well, this is coming out of capital fund.
Right.
That's what we're proposing. So every year if we have excess fund balance, we've been moving into the capital fund and things.
So it's just kind of sitting there, so it's not really affecting, or it's not our general fund, so it's
No.
capital, so it's gotta be used for capital.
And we try not to,
Okay,
we try not to hire employees
right.
using fund balance because it's ongoing.
Well, and I don't think we need to put this to the public because everyone that I've ever talked to, everyone's always for
A new fire
a
station.
new fire station supporting the firefighters. So I don't think that's gonna be a big uproar at all.
Yeah, it's gonna improve the response time, especially in the south end, and we'll still use the downtown station, but
When are we redoing the downtown station? Like, is that in the plan as
Once
well?
this is built.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you would need this one, cause then
10 years
you're
after.
Right,
here.
I have no room to put the apparatus anywhere to do that downtown
Right.
station.
So another
Okay, so it's in the plan
question,
some-
if we put this in that slot,
This is built, and we can do most of the stuff there and then we
Yeah.
find somebody to remodel.
if we put this one in the spot, I know UDOT's looking at redoing that interchange right now. Do we want to talk to them about maybe putting a light in there or not?
You mean
If
that
we're gonna put that
intersection?
fire, yeah, if we're gonna put the fire station, then maybe they
Oh, yeah, it
shouldn't be
needs
doing
a
what
light.
they're gonna do now. They need to maybe expand it or
Well,
something.
and that's one of the things we need to talk to UDOT and see where we can place the station, what the bays coming out onto the main road. I don't know if that's gonna be okay where we're showing them, or if we've gotta go further south, which if we do that hurts Sean. Or if we can keep it where we're at, and have the
Or
right
have-
spacing.
Could we go out on that road that's to the north of it and you turn and you come out onto that one and then you would have the light?
You could, but then the problem is you gotta fight that 1900 south all the time and get through all that traffic, where if you get on the main road, it'd be a lot easier.
And you have to slow down traffic with a light.
Yeah,
And it's only like highway, right, and there's no turn.
Now, say, if we're gonna put it here, we need to talk to them and tell them.
So we would need to put a turning lane, we would need to enable that a
Yeah, I
little
mean,
bit
this would
better.
have to be something you don't, but I think Scott's talking about just having the fire trucks come right out on SR 198.
yeah.
What would
Right,
happen?
I think that'd be the best.
This is where I think UDOT would come in handy, because to me, that might be, hey, mirror image that, and we'll stretch your intersection out to include it, so that would dump the fire trucks into the intersection. So when you're in there, you get a call, we flip the lights red, everything comes to a screeching halt there, and you're coming out into a closed intersection.
Oh,
Nobody can go anywhere.
Yeah, they have the technology now that it's not the strobe lights and stuff. Now it's all technology of actually your location of your vehicles. And just like they do with the snowplow trucks.
Right.
As they're coming down the interstate or, I mean, on the highways and stuff, they'll change the lights, so they just keep going and don't have to stop at all.
But
So something we can look at. Or
yeah,
talk about.
and all I'm saying is then you're not dealing with, well, you got people parked in front of you. That stoplight will
At the
stop them
stoplight.
behind that stop line. Your trucks will always be in front of the stop line.
Yeah, but we can ask them that and see if they.
But that's my idea is engineering problem. Don't forget.
So not that you need to make a decision, but are we on the right track going this way? And if we are, I think we'd have to get some PR stuff, the Kiwanis, the Lions,
Yep.
the Cultus Club and all that, and get the firemen and the fire community out there to help, saying, look, this is a good thing to raise our property tax, whatever rate that's gonna end up being. It'll be about $40 a year. But this is what we need, and I think, I think in the public hearing, we're probably not gonna have a lot of backlash.
Are we setting this for this year's
Yeah,
truth and taxation?
we'd really like to get this designed and going.
I just run it.
Oh, is another thing that, at least in that area, their, tax, or their insurance should go down too, so that should.
We tried to get some numbers on that when I talked to American Fork, they had some numbers. We don't seem to be
No, so like St.
being able to get numbers.
On St. George, when they built that Station 10, everybody on that area was a rating of a 10 at ISO, which is the highest you can get. St. George City is a 3 like we are. So as soon as they built that station, everybody in that area dropped from a 10 to a 3. Our problem is the people out in that area are getting a rating of a 3 for the fire insurance.
If it goes down to 2, there'll be a little bit of savings.
So,
And I still think there'll be some savings that we can say, look, we'll have a better rating, hopefully. And
Well, the problem I see is if you moved your apparatuses up there to remodel the one and closed it long enough, they might kick us all to a 10 on the other
They
side.
won't, at that point, they wouldn't know that.
So,
And so, and what we would do is
really
we'd
tell them the
probably,
things we want them
we'd
to.
probably keep, that other station and not sell until we remodel downtown to keep an engine and an ambulance there, just so we have something more local. And then the other thing is they're supposed to be coming next year to evaluate us. We would tell them, hold off until we get the station built, because it would improve our rating. I mean, we squeaked out a 3. When I started, we were a 6, so we've gotten down, but the problem is it's personnel. For our part-time or volunteer, we get a third for training, for fire calls and stuff. They don't give us a full 100% credit. And so that's where it really kills us, is on that type of stuff.
Well, this one would facilitate a full-time fire crew.
Would need to, yes. And that's something.
that's another discussion for other.
But we
Because
look
that's
at some
very
grants.
expensive to go full-time.
Well, this sounds a lot like that one guy that talked us into MTech, and then we didn't get funding to put teachers in.
Oh, wait, I close to home.
Just
leave the camel.
Well,
So council, we on board with this?
I think we'll continue down this road.
so when your trucks are returning, they'd go through that parking lot and then come in
They come around 1900 south and back in from behind.
from
The
that
front
parking
part,
lot and then.
there is a little road that we can turn right for like a brush truck or an ambulance to make it easier to get out.
Okay, sounds good. Guess we got through with that. We'll move on to discussion about fiscal year 2025, 2026.
I think we spent all our money already,
Yeah,
so
we're-
let's go home.
For 45 years. We're done.
This is just going to be guidelines. Like, let's set expectations. We're not having a 3-hour meeting or anything like that. We're just gonna talk about some highlights and ask some specific questions. And
I need
you guys
you,
can applaud Kathy's
Kim,
amazing work.
I need to sneak out in about a half an hour. Do you have that check?
Do you have a check for me too?
I gotta leave in 20 minutes. Yeah, my check.
If I wait longer, do I get more?
You need me to come with you?
Well, and just know, Mayor Council, this tentative budget's on the agenda next week for a regular meeting. We do need to approve the tentative budget under state law, and then we've got from next week until August to finalize the budget. So we'll have plenty of time to change and stuff, but we just want to give you some highlights.
This is like the previews at a movie.
Oh,
Think of it like that.
Does this
Five
budget
So fun.
include, as, city council members?
So we get to decide if we wanna watch it or not.
Right.
We gave you peanut M&Ms. Come on, stay for the show.
We are so, like, on the edge of our seats. What time is it?
So Kathy's gonna take it away and then maybe I'm gonna jump in.
Yeah, so do that.
This is like everyone say, a very broad overview. So for fiscal year 2026, it's gonna be $118,463,000 budget. That's huge.
And we wanna get another 193 million?
Spread out over 40 years.
That's not a budget, that's one.
I don't know.
So we've added a 6% investment in individual wages. There's been some debate how we're gonna assess that, if we're gonna do it partially COLA, partially merit, or, you know, however, it's gonna be the ultimate decision. Just wanted to point out that when you look at wages, a good portion of the benefit is tied up in URS benefits. Especially, Brad's not here, but if you look at public safety, up to 33% is retirement. And it's huge. We've tried to give the department heads what we've asked for, and for the most part, the department heads are really conservative. They try to meet their operations, but they don't ask for a lot more. Fire.
Exactly.
When you look at the mayor's economic development, and we are gonna send away around the tentative budget document, Kim's gonna send it tomorrow. But you're gonna see a significant decrease in the mayor's economic development, and that's only because we reallocated some of the things like the lobbyists and things like that that really don't belong in there. So it reflects what the mayor needs. Again, the tentative budget adoption is statutory. We're gonna have meetings afterwards. Insurance renewal this year, general liability went up 6.95%, workers' comp went up 6.95%, employee health went up 5.5%, and dental went up 10%. Proposed utility rate increases. We're gonna have the second of a 4-year increase in power. That's what we're suggesting. That's 5.5%. We're gonna bring this forward in June though, so hopefully we can start assessing utility rates in July in the year. We're proposing a 3% utility increase for water, sewer, storm, and landfill.
So that's actually lower than the CPI, isn't it?
The CPI, I think, is like 2.9,
Oh, so we're right
2.7.
there.
That's right around 3.
And just so you know too, with that 5.5 for electricity, Rocky Mountain Power wanted to raise their rates by 30.5%.
That's because they're going bankrupt.
That's right, because the Oregon fire,
Yeah.
but the state said, and then they dropped it down to 18 point something percent. And then the state said, oh no, you're not gonna do that. They hit it 4.7%. So we're right in that ballpark.
The thing that she just went through is kind of the argument of why do we look at utility rates every year, but you just saw insurance went up, liability insurance, health insurance, all the stuff went up. And that's just trying to, the CPI, which we've looked at for the last several years, just helps us keep with those increases, because they go up with us just as much as they go up with everybody.
And I won't go through the balance of those slides, I'll just tell you, we are suggesting some full-time positions, full-time in ambulance, a full-time in police, they're gonna stagger hiring us a little bit later in the year, so we can afford it. Police, we had to adjust wages, to keep them up to market, and that was over $118,000. Get the additional over the 6%, it was huge. And then,
Say something about police. Well, I think we've done a lot better job at keeping our police because we have been trying to do that, so it's been.
But it has been costly, I mean.
Right, but it's.
But it's even more costly, we lose them, we train them, and then we lose them, have to train again.
That's true.
oh, and we did put in an RDA individual for the makerspace. And I think Robert and Dave and Brian are working on maybe some possibilities of covering that on an annual basis. Is that? I think, oh, and a BNC employee. They asked for, 3 operators, I believe, in streets, and the general fund is just getting taxed, so we suggested taking it out of BNC. We're using about $3.4 million of fund reserves. It was down a little bit lower, and then Steve reminded me that they need to do $700,000 for the new air conditioning unit for next year, over. That's a broad overview. Do you want more detail or discussion?
Yeah, and you guys can, I just want to make one comment, because the last several years, for our budget, we've put in the budget to use fund balance to help balance the budget. But at the end of the year, in the fiscal year, we've never used that money, because we usually come in with less expenses and our revenues come in just a little better. So Kathy's very conservative on how we run the numbers. But so I generally wouldn't want to use any fund balance to do our operating budget. We propose to use some, but I think, how long have you been here, Kathy?
6 years.
She said in the 6 years she's been here, we've never used what we budgeted for, because budget's just your best estimate. But usually at the end of this, like at the end of June here, we'll probably have money that'll fall to fund balance, because we don't spend as much as is budgeted.
And then excess fund balance over 35%, we can only hold 35%, we transfer to the capital fund. And that's what's helping to fund the downtown, the ambulance or the fire building, things like that. And that gives the council and the mayor an opportunity to allocate new capital projects. One thing we're gonna look at in the future that I would like to do is, if we have excess fund balance, is maybe turn some back to the enterprise funds if we get to that point, to help reduce the transfer from the enterprise funds.
Meaning the water and the sewer.
Make them more healthy than they would be otherwise.
Yeah, I think, I'll just jump in and say, budget this year's been a lot more eye-opening to me, in this experience, because, I think a lot of us take for granted the fact that, when we do our own budgets, there's like a set dollar amount, right? And we get to use that dollar amount and base our monthly budgets and our yearly budgets off of what we really know is going to come in, and that's not how these work. We have to think about revenue, and as the revenue coming, and all of these different things. So it's been a really, really awesome opportunity for me to learn a lot more. I'm glad that utility rate increases is up right now, because that's something that we also wanted to talk to you about and get some feedback, is the idea of a transportation utility fee. The transportation utility fee is exactly that. Basically, it's a fee that is implemented into the utility bill, and that it becomes a revenue funding source for doing transportation improvements to roads and curb and gutter and sidewalk and things like that. This fee started with Provo, and basically it allows them to generate some revenue from sources that generally are exempt from paying taxes. If you think about Provo and many of the communities within our state, there's a lot of tax exempt property. But if you have a utility fee, then those properties are subject to that fee, because even though they might have tax exempt property, they're still creating impact. If you think about Brigham Young University, that is a major facility that creates a lot of impact on the city. We in Payson City have similar situations. We have lots of property in our city that is tax exempt. We are looking at the idea of doing a transportation utility fee as a revenue source to put into our roads. When we did the survey a couple of years ago, that was the highest ranking need and things that people really wanted us to see fix the roads. And all of you have driven on them and you understand that. So this creates a way for us to fund that. Most cities, when we were down at the conference and talking with many of our colleagues in the same positions, most cities are really considering this as a way to fund the improvements that need to be made. Because the reality is that BNC road funds, that revenue source is not covering the cost of what it takes to go and actually have high quality.
And it's kind of a misnomer too, because with BNC money, it's a formula, I don't know what the formula is, but it's based off our population too. So the state takes a hell of a lot of that.
There's
We
a lot
get
of,
what's
there's
left
a lot of
over.
money that comes out of that from gas taxes, whatever. The other thing, that I just wanted to bring up is we've actually budgeted money to do this study. Because what we hear over and over and over again is if you're considering a transportation utility fee, make sure that the data supports it. And that's what we want to do, is this first step is we want to move forward with the study to actually understand what that fee would be. It would be different for businesses versus residential uses, because there's obviously different impacts on our infrastructure. So if we have good data, we want to be able to come back to you and say, this is the data, this is how much we would anticipate generating in revenue that could then be applied to these specific things, these specific growths that we want to accomplish. As we take questions, be thinking in your mind, if it comes back, because we can always do studies, right? But if at the end of the study, the answer is no, we don't want to do this, then really what was the point? But if it creates a revenue stream that directly goes back into a level of service situation for our residents, then I would strongly encourage you to consider it. Question?
So I'm not opposed to the transportation fee, tax, whatever you want to call it. Well, here's really why I said it that way, is because I honestly can see this as a big problem that needs to be addressed statewide, and maybe we need to reach out to our state legislatures and say, hey, what are some other options? Why can't we legalize the a sales tax upon gasoline? Our fuel tax, why, I mean, they're taxing it for their roads, why can't we tax it for our roads? So we could add a small tax to the gas pump, that when they're pumping up, that they're doing that. And then a fee for electric vehicles. If you put in a home electric charger, there's a fee associated with that. And you have to pay that monthly or that annual fee. And not tax, as we try to create walking communities, public transportation, but we're still gonna charge you a fee for the roads for the people that don't use those. To me, that seems like a two-faced maneuver. I wanna try to tax the people that are using the materials the way it should be. And by adding that tax at the pump and adding that fee to have a charging station, I think would be advantageous to all involved. So I think we would need that study to have those numbers, but we need to reach out to the legislatures and say, hey, can we write a bill that allows this?
Brett, that makes too much sense.
I know. What? Did you get that on record? Can I get a print out of that?
Recorded.
That was recorded.
Good job.
I stayed in the box, thank you.
Good job.
I really think that's a better way to assess this fee than it is to just flat out say, I'm gonna charge this 85-year-old blind woman who owns her own house and has lived here for 68 years. A $15 a month fee to fix the roads that she can't
Added
see.
to the.
She doesn't even drive.
She did wear a mouth though in her 68 years.
You're right, she did, and they should have been collecting it then.
You're right.
But this isn't,
This isn't for the roads.
No,
are you talking about the utility fee
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
water, sewer, water?
Yeah, why is it 3%?
the 3% is just the
It's covering the consumer
consumer
price.
price index.
Oh.
That's how much it went up this
Oh.
last year.
That's inflation.
So going back to the transportation fee, so I've been pushing this for a long time to get our roads caught up, so it saves money in the long term. So I think it's imperative that we look at this, doesn't mean we have to adopt it, but we need to look at it. And it's gonna go time with our with you too. Cause we're doing the underground and we do our roads and we start catching up, and then if we catch up and keep the slurry and all that stuff going, 10 years from now, it's gonna save everybody money.
Well,
Having,
going back,
having a revenue
Right.
stream in order to maintain the investments that we make, that's super important.
go,
Somebody
ahead.
Somebody comes in and puts a new subdivision, and we don't do anything for 15 years, and it falls to pieces. Then we're putting, have to replace it versus if we keep the slurry sealed or, whatever we have to, then it's gonna last for 30 years instead of 15. So,
Going back to what Brett said about, it's a 65 or 70-year-old or 80-year-old lady that, again, they benefited from it for a number of years and they've wore some of this out, but I can remember just as clear as a bell, 30 years ago when we became a police officer, the argument for not doing curb gutter and sidewalk was, oh, we got so many retired people. It just will kill them. Well, you can make that argument every year for 100 years and you never get it. But we've got at some point in time to do something so we, as Brian said, to catch up.
I think that the interesting part is you think about how much you utilize roads. And even the senior citizens or whatever that might not be driving as much. But oh my
DoorDash
goodness,
still comes.
oh my goodness, Amazon comes to my in-laws house.
Well, to say nothing of the grandkids that ride on the roads.
Right.
I'll think outside the box now. We need to just charge Amazon.
Wouldn't that be good?
Like a 50%.
That would be
Well, you know
awesome.
what, I don't wanna talk, cause we did agree to charge on sales tax and, yeah, but Amazon gets like 90% of that stinking sales tax. I think that's,
They do?
oh, they get a lot of it. We don't ever see much of it trickle down this far, if any. That's
Well,
my
we need to
understanding.
change that again.
The state rolled over for them on that one, but, and as well, I think that's why I said it's gotta be more statewide, because you'd start to see more price fluctuations if people had control over the taxes based on it, and you'd want people to stop in Payson and get their fuel. If we were moving more fuel through here, we'd be making more
The
money.
one difference is that this does give us a chance to capture those tax exempt entities that still create a
They still
significant
pay
impact.
taxes on their fuel though.
No, they don't. We don't pay taxes on our trucks.
You don't pay gas tax?
No,
Not for a city vehicle.
For cities, I think in church, but they,
That's an
but everybody
interesting.
that comes to Payson for like temple.
Well, then maybe they'll just make it to Santa Quinn or Spanish Fork and not pay it.
But you got the Maverick coming in, everyone's gonna stop there. It's an
Have you noticed
first
every
stop.
city has a Maverick now, though?
I go out of my way to find them.
I think everybody else does.
I don't know if you guys have been out there, but steel is up.
Going up.
Built up, all right.
Salem's building 2 of them, so.
getting a Buc-ee's.
But if you remember that presentation on the roads.
They're clearing
we're
stuff
like
out.
half of
Well,
what-
there's no contract signed.
It wasn't signed?
On which one?
they're still up in the air. We could still be in the run.
Still a rumor.
Which one?
It's a gas station.
What's that?
And
Is
they're
that truck
like-
stop?
Yeah.
It's like-
Texas-
So
It's
my
metal.
question,
It's
my
a
question.
destination.
Are we okay to move forward with the study?
Yes.
We've already got money budgeted this year for the
I thought we
study.
already agreed to the
We're
study.
gonna move the study forward. I just got it updated from Lewis Young. And we'll get them going on it.
So I think there needs to be, we talk about past senior. I'm sorry, not all of them are poor. Some of them are on, like, literally their social security and that's it. But the majority of them now do have other ways to get their income. And, I don't want to take it from them, but
You might even be able to do like an indigent waiver.
exactly.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say. Do
Yes.
a waiver, if you're only making 100 or what, 15,000 a year, you're probably gonna need something like that.
And they're not always the ones that are the poorest, like
No.
there are families, small
There's families that are more poor than that.
They're
But that
struggling.
we should probably be aware of.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think this just gives us, specifically because it's a fee, that gives us the opportunity to have a waiver situation as well.
Well, it's been a discussion for 40 to 50
Yeah.
years, the roads have been.
But like he said, the electrical cars need to be paying for it too.
Yes,
Right.
I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
And that's why a fee, everybody pays, and
So what do you do when you go, would you do it like at the car? I mean, when you go to,
it'd be on your utility
It's on your utility bill for.
but how would
As
they
a
know
property
what car you have?
They don't care if you get a utility.
Oh, it'd just be on every utility bill.
Like, if you, so if you have electricity, you
But
can.
no, the state registration as well. The state
One more
does
point.
charge about his online.
Kind of, but like I say, Kim's gonna put out the definitive, budget document. We'll try to give as much detail as we can, but if you have questions, please call, let's discuss them and go through it. Kelly also had a question, so the council chambers have been revamped, so you're all gonna have a little monitor in front of you, so you're gonna see what's being presented. But our question was, do you guys want or need a printed budget, how we've done in the past, or are you good with just the electronic one that we send you?
I don't. I would like it printed, it's just pretty easy for me to. look
I
through.
think I would like to print it as well.
Yeah, that's not that expensive.
Yeah, no shame.
It's not.
It was really
No,
expensive.
no, we're
And you're not over
just wondering. We didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else?
Thank you,
I
guys.
know.
Okay, sounds like,
make your eyes pop.
yeah. But
They're only 1.5.
guys, anything else you want to talk about?
I had to start getting prescriptions.
Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, I'll accept the, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second it.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.